Hey, this is Adam from realworldworship.org, and I decided I'm going to start doing quick gear thought videos just because I can. And they're not going to be super long. I'm not going to play or anything. I'm just going to talk about different pieces of gear and how to use them in church or if you should, all that kind of stuff. And today I just wanted to talk about the Deluxe Memory Man from Electro-Harmonix. It's sort of the granddaddy, it's the classic delay pedal. And so I just thought it would be useful, helpful to talk about it. Who should use it, all this kind of stuff. So what's this pedal's deal? Like I said, it's classic. I mean, this is if a digital delay is claiming to try to sound like an analog delay, it's usually trying to sound like either this or maybe like the Boss DM2, but it's usually one or the other, right? Like they're trying to sound like one of those two delays. This is the delay pedal that digital delays try to emulate when they do an analog setting. This is the delay pedal that a lot of analog delays are copying on some level. The JHS Panther, the Walrus Audio, Bellwether. I mean, they're copying the Deluxe Memory Man. That's what they're trying to be. And so this is the analog pedal. Of course, you think of U2, early U2 records like Boy, War, that stuff is all this. This is the original U2 delay pedal. And he still uses it on some stuff. I know he went to more like rack-mounted stuff later, but this is the original like primitive U2 sound where you get that like I Will Follow, that really great rhythmic delay. It's this thing. A lot of the modulated stuff on those early records too was actually the modulation on this. It's a rad pedal. So what makes it magical? There's a lot of different theories about that. You'll see on like Reverb or eBay when people are trying to sell these things, and they'll be like, oh, it has to have these old Panasonic MM3005 chips. I don't think it's the chips. This one has the 4 MN3008 chips made by Panasonic. I've played the new ones with the X-Vive chips. I really don't think it's the chips. So sue me. I think what makes this pedal magic is like the sum of its parts. The analog Bucket Brigade style chips are part of it, but there's also a onboard clean boost that's part of this thing that really is like if you turn the delay and everything down but you're riding that clean boost a little bit, it hits your tube amp in a really nice musical way. The onboard vibrato or chorus options are very, very nice modulation settings. In fact, a little trick with this pedal is if you turn the delay all the way down and work the vibrato to the right thing, it's actually a really nice lead tone sweetener. Like if you're going to use this as a boost on your lead tone with that modulation, it's great. So you take the preamp, the clean boost, the modulation, the chips. The other thing, and I think this is really the thing that sets the original Deluxe Memory Man apart. And by the way, I've A/B'd the old big box version with the new Deluxe Memory Man XO, the smaller ones, and I don't think there's a huge difference. I think the real difference is 24 volts. This thing is 24 volts. The Deluxe Memory Man tap tempo, both the 1100 milliseconds and the 550, Walrus Audio Bellwether, any analog delay that you can think of that's essentially trying to be a Deluxe Memory Man runs at 9 volts. Chase Bliss Tonal Recall, same thing. They're running at 9 volts. Now maybe they have a higher MA draw because they've got like the onboard stuff like the Electro-Harmonix tap tempo or the Chase Bliss Tonal Recall, but the MA is actually just for the onboard processors and things. It doesn't have to do with the power going to the circuit. So 24 volts, the headroom, all that combined makes this thing a magical pedal. And I remember the first time I plugged one in and I thought, oh man, I get it now. Like I always thought, like, what's the big deal? There's so many good delays out there, why is it this thing so special? And then when you hear it go through your amp, it's like, whoa, that is something special. Now the drawbacks, of course, are that it's huge. It's massive. And obviously you're going to have trouble fitting it on your pedal board if you don't have like a Pedal Train Pro. And even then, because if you have a Pedal Train Pro, it's probably because you have a lot of pedals, you're going to have a hard time finding room for this thing. You really have to be committed to it. to have it as a delay pedal for you. It also doesn't have tap tempo. That's a big drawback for some people. I would say this though, I've found that it's really is, if you set it to sort of an average BMP or time setting of like, yeah, this is kind of the average, especially in church. Most of our songs kind of sit in a certain range. If you set it to an average time signature, it flows pretty well. You can also get mods or modifications done. Analog Man does them. This one's actually been modified by Analog Man, although it doesn't have the one I'm going to recommend to you, which is, if I was going to mod this thing again, I would get the expression mod. And the reason I would is that if you can change how much of the blend is in and out, you know, you can bring it so that's really forward, really present, but then you could back it up, and then it's a real subtle thing in the background, and the tap tempo becomes a little less important if you're controlling the blend. You can also get a mod for the rate, so you could, I guess, control time that way, but it just seems inaccurate to me. Should you get it modded? I think that those expression options are a really neat idea. I don't feel like the impedance or the extra delay time mods or the gain mods, I don't think they really helped that much. I actually think the biggest thing with this or any analog delay is making sure that it is calibrated correctly. When I first got the tonal recall, I did not like it. And I found out that first run of tonal recall, they had some issues with calibration, and then I got a later version of the tonal recall, and I loved it. So having your delay correctly calibrated, and analog delays need to be recalibrated every so often. That's really the biggest thing, way more than any of these mods that you can get done. I know that there is a guy, Howard something, and he does a tap tempo mod for this. I haven't seen a lot about it. I hear it works. I hear he was a big guy in designing this pedal. But you know, other than that, like if you want to spend the money to have the tap tempo mod, I could see that. But I think the biggest thing with any analog delay is having it calibrated. How do you use it in worship? It kind of is up to you. It sounds great no matter what. You know, you want to use it washy, sort of ambient delay, slapback, rhythmic. Like I said, I kind of set it as at a rhythmic U2-ish kind of sounding delay, and I kind of let it be. And then because I have to have tap tempo, I have a tap tempo delay for that sort of stuff. Right now it's not on my main board. One thing you can do with this too is you could make it the last in your chain, and then if you were just kind of using it on your own, you can use it kind of separate, so you could set up your board and then set up your Deluxe Memory Man next to it. As to who should own it, I don't think this is a pedal for people just starting out necessarily. If you don't have a lot of money, they're not cheap. You know, they're out of production. The big box ones are out of production. You can get the XOs for a really good price. And I think if you are starting out and you're looking for sort of a second delay, like let's say you're using the DD20 or the DD7 from Boss with the tap tempo, you say, hey, I've got tap tempo covered. I'm looking for an analog kind of washy delay. The Deluxe Memory Man XO, great option, and it's smaller. It'll fit on your pedal board. If you have a larger pedal board and you're like, yeah, I could find the space for that. If you're a collector, because honestly, they're not making them anymore, and it's getting harder and harder to find ones that are in good shape. I mean, this one's not in the worst shape, but I don't know how well it comes up on the camera, but it's scratched up. It's not in mint shape at all, and it's getting harder and harder to find them. And at some point here, these Deluxe Memory Men are going to become like the old Echoplexes, right? They're going to be worth money. And so I think if you kind of buy it knowing that, you know, it's going to be harder to find these at some point, that makes a lot of sense. So it's kind of one of those things that at least you should try. If you have the opportunity to play one, they're not clones. You can afford to get these things, and it's worth getting and trying at least once, because then you kind of know what everything else is trying to sound like. You have a reference point. So I love it. I think it really is. It really is my favorite delay, even though it doesn't have some of the functionality that I need. It is overall, it's my favorite sounding delay pedal, and I highly recommend everybody should try it. And I'd recommend buying one if you can swing it. So there we go.